Hello and welcome to Off the Brawl and Off the Ball. I'm Ronan Mullen, joined as ever by Andy Lee. Andy, how are things?
Grand, Ronan. How are you?
Not too bad. Mixed weekend of fortunes for Limerick sport there. You and Paddy were at the game in Croke Park.
That's right, yeah. We went up and we were sickened leaving the place, but we had a good day all the same, and fair play to Kilkenny. Yeah.
Would Paddy be a big GA man, or is he?
Yeah, he was well into it. Like he was educating me on the game, so I wouldn't read that up on it. But yeah, and coincidentally we ended up sitting next to Eddie Brennan, Kilkenny player, so we had a bit of crack with him and his young lad. But yeah, it was they left it too late. Didn't they give too big of a start, and then too many wides. Could have got it back in the end, but they learned from it. It was a huge learning.
Yeah, that was the main
fight for those guys.
Like probably a more talented team, and yet it's just we're always talking about coaching on this show. And Brian Cody, like it was a masterclass with probably lesser weapons, and he still managed to grind out the win. So like
just all to give away free in, like to give away too many fouls at the start, and then they were 8 points down before they even got going. You know what I mean? Then it was just it's always going to be a battle against a good team like that. TJ Reid was very good.
He's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was a big boost for Limerick though on Monday. Greg won Love Island, so you were clued in on that as well, were you?
I actually got into it. Yeah.
Did you really?
Yeah, the last few weeks.
Fair play. Because of him.
Initially through Tommy Fury. My wife was watching it, so then you start having a look at Tommy and see what he's doing, and I thought he was going to win it, to tell you the truth, but I don't think people like Molly May too much. But yeah, it's good for him. Well, she won it, didn't she, really, Amber?
Yeah.
Did you watch it?
Not really, no. Joe Malloy's the man out there to...
Yeah, Owen and Sue, they were trying to convince me to do an off the island, I guess. We did off the wall. But no, that's... Game of Thrones was enough as far as I go. Yeah,
and just on the hurling, like it's another weekend where you kind of reminded how savage that sport is. Like it's just, did you ever get any of the American lads when you were living in Detroit? Did they ever lay eyes on it? Or
no, not really, and it was even hard to get there because there wouldn't be much shown. You know what I mean? So unless you were watching it on streams or that. But no, but I'm only getting really into it now, and it's just this. I love everything about it, really. Obviously the match, the speed and the play and the skill involved, the passion, but also like kind of the atmosphere and when you're sitting there in the stands, it's like nothing else. Like it's just, kind of communal, and the respect between the opposing fans and the crack, and just watching, when your team score, everyone rise up together, and like we're all in this together, and then the other team jump up, and they score, get a point. I really enjoy it. I'm sorry it's over for Limerick this year, but...
They'll be back. They'll be back.
Definitely.
Speaking of big occasions, big weekend on the Irish boxing calendar this week. Michael Conlan set to pack out the Falls Park in Belfast on Saturday. We'll hear from Michael shortly. Before that, Andy, a lot has happened since we were last on this show, and I know you've said your piece a lot on Off the Ball, but headline after headline, not all of them good, hardly any of them good, in fact. And
I know there's actually like a good shout was just start recording live, you know what I mean? Because boxing is changing so quick. Yeah. And by the time we record, it's outdated, you know what I mean? Unfortunately, there's been 2 deaths since we last recorded. And also I read this morning that Jose Luis Castillo, his son, has actually gone into hospital after injuries from sparring. So it just shows you, it's a reminder of, how dangerous this sport is, how perilous it is, and it's one that I don't know. It was funny how the two things coincided. The rumours of Dillian Whyte's test and these 2 deaths, and now 1 guy who's in hospital, and it all happened in the same weekend, and the 2 things go hand in hand, and they kind of counteract each other, don't they? Boxing has always been a dangerous sport. There's always been deaths in it. But now, and there probably has always been drug abuse or PEDs, and now the 2 things are kind of playing hand in hand, that there has to be action taken to cut out the PEDs, because it is endangering lives more so than ever. Already a dangerous sport, and now it doesn't need any more. So, I don't know, what's the latest on the Dillian Whyte situation? Because it's been kind of gone quiet, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, I saw a draft of a statement that he was about to release, and under legal advice he was told not to release. It's just too many details, and it's still such an ongoing thing. But the detail in Thomas Hauser's piece, Whyte takes issue with a lot of that, but the specifics of what he's taking issue with still not quite clear. So it's whether, is he admitting he took something under TUE, or like there's probably specifics here we're not enlightened about, but the optics of it, as you said, in the week that was in it, and him having accused so many of his compatriots in the division of...
And we've been championing, he's like, we're probably more disappointed than anyone, because we've been championing Dillian Whyte for so long, you know. He's been a real old school throwback fighter, fighting everyone he can get until he gets his shot, you know, but it will be a big blow for boxing if it's confirmed that he failed. But we'll wait and see, like...
Yeah, and the WBC have come out and said that if things play out as we're being led to believe, that the result of the fight won't entitle Whyte to the WBC mandatory position, which is what he's been campaigning for so long. So even if there is some nuance in this, or even if it's not as black and white as it's being made out, it could still jeopardise his future earnings and his future prospects. So it's just been a bad week for him.
I don't know, like it's been said before, but one of the most worrying parts of it is that they knew before the fight, and Rivas wasn't, informed, or his camp wasn't informed.
How would you feel if you weren't told?
I'd be crying blue murder, would you?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Especially how you saw how the fight played out, that Rivas was pressing and being like, and knocked him down, and he was able to recover. All of those things would be playing on your mind. You'd be like, even if it's ruled a no contest, it's still blighting your record, isn't it? The fact that actually you went ahead and happened.
Yeah.
I think it'll still stand in people's minds that, you did lose that fight, no matter what.
Like David Price is a prime example of this, like the amount of losses in his record that should be nulled or just forgotten about, but there's still losses on his record. So how could that not psychologically affect someone, just to be compiling losses and then finding out that the person...
How do you go on like trusting an opponent or a promoter, or all boxing at that sense? Like I don't know. Like when I had that whole episode with Chavez, you can become disillusioned with the sport,
Yeah.
Really do. Like, that they can do what they want, and you're just a pawn. You mean nothing. As a fighter, the fighter is the last one in the list of people who matter. Promoter, like manager, trainer, all the TV executives. The fighters at the bottom, and it's a sorry. That's the sorry state of boxing.
Yeah, and like the last week has kind of brought back to the fore. It's something that should be so obvious, but the jeopardy of the whole thing and how dangerous it is. Like you were talking to Owen last week, was it the Peter Quillen fight you were talking about, where you just had there's a black spot in the middle of that fight, just the brutal nature of it?
Yeah, and I haven't really watched the fight fully, so I don't know. Like, you just try to, I don't know. Sometimes something about you want to just keep away from it, or just put it off. I'll watch it maybe in 10 years. Maybe I'll never watch it. Who knows? But just that, and I'm sure I've seen it in other fights too, where they're just not there. I think. I can't remember what fight it was. Was it Joseph Parker against Dillian Whyte, where he was dropped or hurt early in the fight? I could see that he wasn't fully there. That it wasn't until later on in the fight that he actually regained his. I mean, then they nearly won and stopped Dillian Whyte in the last round. But yeah, it's worrying. But and I spoke about last week about fighters being too brave and the shame of quitting, and how maybe it's not the best thing, but. I've done it myself. Never wanted to pull out. Always wanted to fight to the end. And I think you kind of have to have that. And I think it's in the coaches. Then it's the coach's job to notice and pull the fight and take control. Like it's interesting because Tevin Farmer fought this week. Some said it was a boring fight. I actually enjoyed it. Enjoyed it. I thought I liked his skill. I liked his speed and his kind of ring craft. And then he tweeted. I think it was in response to Mike Coppinger saying. Tevin Farmer was in a boring fight, blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, no, not a boring fight. I got out of there, didn't take it. He questioned it like, you mean entertaining as in taking more punches and throwing more punches, and then ended up hurt like those other two guys this weekend. He said he went home. And that's a smart attitude in a way. It's a smart attitude.
I loved his responses. Mike Coppinger, I have the tweet here, basically was talking to Lou DiBella, and Lou DiBella said, it was a good performance, but he'll have to talk to his fighter about being more entertaining. And as you said, Farmer came back and said, just to be another fighter to suffer from brain injuries and possibly die, just so I can be forgotten about a few months later. Came home to my family unmarked and well, God bless. And like, I love that response.
That's a great response, yeah.
And he had the Pernell Whitaker initials or name on his trunks, and we were eulogising about Whitaker not get hit, sweet science. Then Farmer goes out and puts on a clinic against the guy, his mandatory challenger, and didn't lay it love in him hardly. So I don't know.
He's shown his level, and the one thing about Farmer is that he's fighting regularly. You know, he's active. And it's a great thing for a champion. You know that he'll pick up so much things and do things instinctively because he's fighting on a regular basis. And he's like sharpening all the time, you know.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed his performance of what he controlled from start to finish, and just shows how he's going through the levels now, you know.
Yeah. And the last piece of news since we were last on, you were speaking to Jason Quigley on Thursday, and it was really well received. It's rare you see an elite athlete or a high level sporting athlete like that come out and be so upfront about adversity, and like you're able to lend your own past experiences, and it just came across really well that if this defeat might stand to him, just he might iron out the kinks, and even from a psychological point of view, he's probably better braced for these kind of challenges.
Yeah, and I think he's quite positive, isn't he? And I think he was, during that interview, he was still in the midst of unpacking it, you know, and seeing how he feels about it, because I don't think he's had fully come to terms or looked at it yet. But we'll see how he goes now, you know. It's a crucial time in his career, what he does next.
Is it better to get straight back in there, or take a bit of time?
No, you want to definitely better to get back in there, but unfortunately the way boxing is, sometimes it takes a long time. Now he's been stopped, so he's going to have to take at least whatever it is. Some states there's 28 days where you don't even have a spar.
Yeah.
So he'll have to take a month off, and then he'll have to organise his next fight and get back, you know. But I'm just following on social media, he's back training in the gym, doing weights and stuff, and cardio. So it looks like he's still got the hunger, but he just needs to, it's so important. In some ways it'd be like he needs to come back. It'd be nice if he can come back in a big fight, but it won't be enough for him and for people in the public side until he actually maybe avenges the loss or goes on to win a world title. That he won't. This like there's always going to be that question mark over him. So it's a big time for him, yeah, and it's a tough time for him. But like if anyone can come through it, he can. I've shown that it can be done. So
yeah. And the Brian Vera fight, which you spoke about with him last week, would you have jumped right back in with him in the next fight?
Yeah.
Was that the
we tried everything we could to get him, but he went on. He fought Kirkland, and he fought several big names and got well paid. Even though we were paying him probably as much money, but he didn't want it. Like he got one over me, and in some ways I respected that. You know that he's, you know, you beat me fair and square.
He's going to cash his ticket.
Go ahead and even though we kept trying to get him back, and I couldn't rest easy until I got him back in the ring.
Yeah, so hopefully, Jason, if he's that way inclined, we'll get that rematch with Johnson at some stage down the line. As I mentioned earlier, getting set for one of the biggest Irish fight nights of recent times as Michael Conlan takes on Diego Alberto Ruiz at the Falls Park on Saturday night. I caught up with Michael earlier this week and started by asking him how camp has gone for this one.
All done, thank God. It was fantastic. It went really, really well, and I'm happy it's over. But you know, it was probably my most enjoyable one yet.
And you've had some really special nights already, Michael. Needless to say, Madison Square Garden, even back in Belfast. But just looking at the way the Fail is going to come together and the spectacle of the whole thing, it must be just an added layer of excitement. This must have been the kind of night you were dreaming of bringing back to Belfast when you turned pro.
And listen, these are the nights, you know, what I'm in boxing for. You know, forget everything else, forget the world titles, forget, you know, the money, even though it's all important, yes. And you definitely want it all, but, you know, the atmospheres are something that, you know, you can always make money again, you can always, you know, win belts, but atmospheres are very, very special, and I've been very, very lucky to experience some fantastic ones so far. This one, I can't even contain my excitement. I don't even know what to say at times, because it's that, you know, it has excited me that much. Seeing what the kind of atmospheres I've brought to New York and stuff, and even at home last year, this is going to blow it out of the water, and I know it is. And the best thing about it is that, you know, it's in my back garden, and that's no joke. It's in West Belfast. It's in a park where I grew up. It's not. There's never been a fight of this magnitude in West Belfast. So, you know, for me to be doing that in my home city and the part of my city, which is the West, is very, very special.
Yeah, and Bob Armour's excited as well. He was over for the press conference. He's going to be here on Fight Week as well.
Yeah.
Is he pumped? Is he ready for Belfast? Is he ready for the atmosphere?
You know what? I think it's going to blow Bob away. I don't think he'll have experienced it. He's experienced some unbelievable atmospheres, but you know, the way I'm looking at this one is how, you know, I know I'm going to perform unbelievably, because even like last night when I was lying in bed thinking about it, the excitement and stuff, it was going even more. Usually I start to think of the fight and stuff and kind of ask myself questions of myself, but I have all the answers already in my head this time. It's like this has been the complete camp, and the fight and the venue and the atmosphere is going to be something I've never experienced, and I think Bob will be blown away by it. But for me, it's you know, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and I was just listening to an interview with Bob, and he described you as top of the class, head of the class. It must be a great compliment to hear that coming from him.
Yeah, of course. Listen, he's one of the best. You know, to be honest, in my opinion, he's the best promoter of all time. Look who he's worked with, and look what he's done with him. So, you know, I'm you know, very, very grateful for Bob to be my promoter, and you know, for him to have took a shine to me, and you know, want me to succeed, and you know, give me the kind of best career path possible.
Yeah, and Adam Booth has been talking about the build-up and trying to keep you in line, get focused on the fight at hand. I suppose having fought in Madison Square Garden so often and those big cards, like, it's kind of second nature to you at this stage. But are you able to soak up the occasion at all on the night, or are you just all business once the fight itself is approaching?
No, you know what? That's one thing I'm very grateful for and thankful for, is that, you know, the path I've been on already with the big atmospheres and the big stages. You know, world champions don't get that kind of, you know, excitement and hype around fights is what have been around my fights already. So, you know, a lot of people would fold under the kind of pressure, but I've been very, very lucky to be experiencing it, which is hard at the same time, but I'm grateful for it. I've experienced it from the start, so I know how to handle it. I know how to soak it up, but I also know how to switch back into fight mode as soon as I get in. And you know, as one thing, when I was lying in bed last night, I knew today was the last hard day, and I started to think about the fight, and I was just saying to myself, I'm really going to enjoy this. That's where the excitement is coming. You know, I've never ever, as a pro so far, I've never been able to look at something like this and like just be so excited.
And you're coming off the back of another conclusive win against Ruben Garcia Hernandez. Were you pleased with your performance on that night?
Yeah, listen, I thought it was a very, very good performance. You know, I don't think that performance has been talked about much, but I think that was my best performance to date against, you know, a tough opponent who, you know, he pushed Dunner when he fought Dunner a few times. No, when he fought Dunner, he gave him, you know, he asked a few questions of him, and Dunner couldn't get him out of there in 10 rounds. And you know, I think I almost got him out of there on stages I could have, but what we were working on, me and Adam, about improving and, you know, wanting to be, you know, the complete article for when I do have to face, you know, the best guys in the world. This is kind of the preparation I need to go through. I need to be trying the things which we're working on in the gym in an actual live fight, and you know, that's what that fight was great for. And you know, I thought it was very, very clean. You know, it would have been fantastic if I had a bloody put my foot in the gas and took him out. But you know, it is what it is. I look back on it, I'm really happy with it.
Yeah, I think Andy Lee, was speaking to him after that fight, he said it was probably your best performance as well. You started off that fight in southpaw stance, Michael. Is that something that's pre-planned generally, or do you just make that decision when you get your luck in the ring?
You know what? I always train. I train orthodox, train southpaw. I spar orthodox, I spar southpaw. And you know, once I get into the ring, I never really go, I'm going in to go southpaw here. I'll go in, and it's been something I've done since the amateurs. You know, I just, when I need to do it, or when I feel it's right to do it, I'll do it. And it always works for me. You know, I'm very good at, you know, judging when I should do it and when I shouldn't do it. So I done it bloody in my first Olympic quarter final, winning the bronze medal, and that was the bronze medal fight. And I turned southpaw from the first start, I think, and just went southpaw for the full fight, and you know, got the victory. So I know it's a great tool to have, which I can change it up at any time.
Yeah, and we mentioned Top Rank, Michael, and the big fight that was pegged just after your last performance was Vlad Nikitin, and big press conference over here and a lot of buzz given the history that was there.
Yeah.
Was there an element of disappointment for you that he fell off the card? I know there would have been a lot of motivation just to get that one back, but are you disappointed, or what's the mood, do you think?
You know what? I wasn't at all. Once it happened, I was disappointed. I went, sure, what can you do? You know what I mean? And the first thing I said was just get me a better guy and get me a higher ranked guy, because if I'm honest, I step back now and I look at it, I know that, you know, in terms of levels, I'm a few levels ahead of Nikitin at the minute. You know, there's a big gap, and looks stupid if you look at it on paper, but the storyline and stuff, you know, it kind of fitted very well, and I thought the time was right for it. But now I can't see it happening, so I don't think it'll happen again, and I've made peace with it. So, you know, I was initially disappointed for as long as Jimmy said the sentence, and then I says get the next best guy, and we got the next best guy.
Yeah, you're right. Like, from a narrative point of view, it would have been great, but I think everyone can agree Ruiz is a tougher opponent. Have you seen much tape of him yourself? Like, what kind of fight are you expecting on Saturday?
You know what? He's aggressive. He comes forward. Maybe not as reckless as Vladimir, but you know, he definitely is a high-paced kind of fighter. So I watched, if I'm going to be honest, and I'll be 100% honest here, I watched 40 seconds of
Is that enough?
And that's enough, because I just let Adam and I let Jamie and my dad and stuff, I let them speak to me and tell me what they expect, because if I start feeding in, they must start looking at what he's doing and what I should do to kind of navigate around what he's doing, instead of just focus on what I'm going to do. And I think that's the best way for me to look at things like this, because what I've been working on in the gym and what me and Adam have been trying to polish up is going to work against anybody, and especially against, you know, someone who's aggressive like this. So, you know, I was just focusing on what we were doing, and I kept the kind of manic training regime which we had, and you know, I feel great mentally, physically. It's the best I've ever been, and that's I know people say it all the time, but that's no joke. This is the best I've felt and the most confident I've ever felt in a fight. And that's not overlooking anybody. At the same time, that's just in my own ability and what I'm going to do. If I'm honest, I feel invincible.
Right. And you alluded to the tough camp, and last time you were on speaking to Andy, and both of you made some really interesting points about what it's like to be an Adam Booth fighter, that sometimes it feels like going back to school because he's quite strict and he's got that sort of vibe going on. 18 months into that relationship now, Mick, like, what's it like now? Do you feel like you're settled as an Adam Booth fighter?
Yeah, 100%. I think that's why this has been probably the most enjoyable one yet. Over the last 6 months, I would say, even before the last fight, coming into the last fight, and then throughout this whole training, this one has been. I've been in training for this fight since, I think, April 8th. So it's basically 4 months of non-stop kind of work and improvement and learning every day. But it's been so enjoyable, because I feel me and Adam have kind of came full circle. We know each other inside out now. We know what I'm good at. We know what works for me, what doesn't work for me. How to motivate me, how not to motivate me, and things like that. No, all little small things. I think it's all came full circle, and we just this last 6 months, I kind of went up new gears. I feel like I'm a new me.
And he's got it's such a unique style that Adam Booth coaches, this high twitch sort of style.
Yeah.
Have you been working on anything specific in this camp, or has it just been more sharpening the tools? Is there any one thing he's been trying to work on with you?
We're completing the whole course. You know, we got to do everything. My NCAA game was worked on a good lot in this camp, because if it was facing Vladimir Nikitin, I know they would have expected me to run and try to box. They would have expected me to box, or they would call it running, which was not the case. I was going to face him head on, and I would have wiped him out within 4 rounds. So that was kind of the plan for that one. But you know, it won't be the same for this guy. You know, it's going to be a lot more smarter.
Yeah.
But my NCAA game has improved an awful lot. My body work has improved an awful lot. Even though I felt it was very good, you know, from living in LA and training over there, and you know, I think that helped kind of improve that side of the game. But we're kind of fine-tuning everything now.
Yeah, and you've kind of touched on it already, but just Nikitin, from his point of view, like a win over Ruiz kind of puts you a street clear in Nikitin. Is that a fight you think's ever going to happen, or are you happy just to park that now and move on with your own career?
I'm happy to park it, you know, if I'm honest. I don't think it'll happen. I don't know. I haven't seen no, medical proof that he really did injure his arm. So, I don't know.
Do you think he
if
bottled it?
wanted or not? But listen, I don't know. It's a possibility, but he was getting paid a lot of money, so it kind of makes me doubt that he did.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I know from my own father, he was in the European Games with the Russian team, and he spoke to one of the coaches, and the coach had said, "Oh, Vladimir called," and he asked, "How did I beat Conlan?" And he says, "Vladimir, you just need to learn how to take a beating for 10 rounds." So
yeah,
it was a funny one, but I'll park it. Listen, if the opportunity arose and I was world champion and Vladimir built his way up and was able to fight me for able to defend the world title against him, that would be fantastic. I'd love that, but if I'm honest, I can't see it happening.
Yeah, and in your last performance, it definitely looked like you were warming into the featherweight division a lot, and there had been a bit of talk coming out of the camp about maybe getting a move to super bantam. What's your thoughts on that now? Are you set as a featherweight for the foreseeable future?
It's still a possibility. It's still something we've been speaking about. This fight was first made at featherweight, so there was no point of dropping it down to super bantamweight. If it was because Nikitin was not moved down to super bantamweight was the reason we're not at super bantamweight for this one. But it's definitely still a possibility and something we'll look at. But even at that, the featherweight as well, I'm open to options. I believe I'll be world champion, whether it's featherweight or super bantamweight. Within the next 12 months, I'll be a world champion.
And there's some very good fighters that weight. Obviously, Josh Warrington in this part of the world, Oscar Valdez with Top Rank as well. How far away? You've kind of put a clock on it there yourself, but are you, in the next couple of fights, would you be happy enough to jump in with them? Or even now, if Adam Booth would let you, would you be confident to jump in with the likes of Warrington and back your chances?
After this last 6 months we have been training, as I said, I believe right now I'd be down world champion.
That's a big statement.
100%, but I believe it, and listen, people will doubt you, and people will talk, on social media and criticize you for having opinions, but I believe in the work what I've been doing and the improvements I've been making in the gym every single day, and kind of how much more professional I became over the last 6 months has given me that kind of confidence and kind of belief, like I kind of had in the amateurs the whole time. It's kind of given me that again, and I do truly believe that if it was August 3rd and I was faced as any world champion, I would win. Yeah,
and has there been much talk? I know you're not overlooking any of your upcoming fights or any of your upcoming plans, rather, but has there been any talk from Bob about a potential route for you, or are you just kind of taking each fight as it comes at the moment?
Well, there's been talks behind the scenes, but there's not much I can really say at the minute. But there is talks and routes which was planned out.
And a stablemate of yours now, Carl Frampton, is with Tom Park as well, and there's kind of been a route laid out for him to maybe fight Valdez. How do you think those two match up?
Yeah. You know what? It's a great fight because I don't believe Carl is the same Carl who was there a few years ago when he was the unified world champion, but Carl's still a world champion, world level fighter. Like he's not. If he fought Valdez, he would have every chance of winning. With Oscar at the same time, I believe Oscar is talking about moving up because he feels like he's struggling to make weight. It seems, but he will stay for the Frampton or Warrington fight I was reading. So. Listen, I've seen in Oscar's last few performances, and I was a gym leader Oscar, and I've seen what he was like in the gym and how good of a fighter he actually is, and he's a fantastic fighter. But I did say now the last few performances I've seen him, it looks like he's taken a bit too much out of himself when he's in there, because I've seen the guy spark people out in sparring, and then he's going in with 8-inch gloves on and going the distance. So it's he definitely must be fighting hard to make 126.
You've been great with your time, Mick. Just before I let you go out, boxing generally, it's been a tough few days just with the tragedies in the ring and drugs coming back to the fore, like in a few different places. Like, does this make you take stock when these kind of things happen? Like, what's your thinking on the last week? Really?
You know what? It's been a bad week for boxing, if I'm honest. And usually, I would probably think about things like this and start to think and go, listen, I have a young family, 2 kids and stuff, so and a partner. So you got to think, what am I doing this in the ring for? And, is it really worth the risks? But how I've kind of navigated myself around it is I've looked at it and said, well, listen, how much guys in their jobs, how much fishermen, how much taxi men, how much all these other people, how much are these guys die on the job per day? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's an awful lot. So boxing, I think it's what now with the last two, it's 12 deaths in 10 years. So it's not something which is very, very regular, but it has been regular over the last week. And then you get the doping stuff, and it's very, very sad. It pisses me off because I do believe a lot of fighters are doping. If I'm honest, I do believe that. But the fact that when it comes out and stuff, it scares you even more because that puts you at risk even more. And when you have a family and you have friends, and you're like, I'm not the type of guy who says I'm going to die in the ring, because that's not something I want to do.
Yeah.
I'm willing to die in the ring. It's not. What I do boxing for is my job. Yes, I'm very good at it. I can earn a good living from it, but I'm not hanging around it too long like a lot of guys.
Yeah, and on the issue of doping, like Eric Donovan and a few other people have said they were tested around the clock as an amateur, but haven't been tested as a pro. What's your experience been with testing?
I've seen a lot of people saying that, and to be honest, I've been tested almost every single fight I've boxed. So I've been randomly tested since I've turned pro. I think I've been randomly tested 3 times, and that's Yukata, who's came to the gym. And they've tested me, they've tested Josh Kelly, they've tested Harlem Eubank and stuff, and Joe Joyce and stuff in the gym. So there has been a bit more testing, I think, with me in terms, because I'm always kind of the main event or high profile kind of fight. So that's probably the reason I'm getting tested. And maybe because I'm boxing in New York. When you're boxing in New York, it's kind of regulation. Everybody gets tested. So I've been tested an awful lot as a pro in terms of the fights, but random testing, like out of camp, no, it's twice.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an issue, but we'll have to leave the last word on your fight, Mick, and that's the big issue at hand. And it's going to be a sold-out arena and quite an occasion. What can fans expect that are going to be there or going to be tuning in? What are they going to expect on Saturday night? I
feel you're going to see probably the best atmosphere boxing has ever experienced. And that's not even a lie. That's the truth. It's it's going to be between 10 and 12,000 people now. The seats are going up, so it's unbelievable. I think it's going to be an amazing night of boxing, some fantastic fights, and I think you're going to see a coming performance from me.
All right, so Michael Conlan there. Andy, you're going to be at this one for BT. Are you excited? Big show?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's always a good atmosphere in Belfast, isn't it? The last outdoor fight I did up there was Conal Frampton against Kiko. The second fight, and that was wild. It was August as well, but it was like one of the coldest nights I can remember.
Titanic Quarter.
Yeah. So hopefully you have a better time on the Falls Road. But looking forward to it. It should be a good card. There's some good fights on it from like Paddy Barnes and the comeback fight. Really be interesting to see what he does.
Yeah.
Crossroads fights for Steve Collins. Obviously, big fight for Luke Keeler. He's in tough, you'd think, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
He has home advantage, which can't be underestimated. Arias has been at a high level. He's mixed it with Jacobs and Rosado. So it's a big, you have to give Luke credit, but I think this is the kind of fight he's always wanted.
Yeah.
And if he can win this fight, it's a huge statement. He puts himself right in the mix. So we'll see how he goes.
And we'll hear from Luke shortly. And just on the occasion itself, the nature of the big show, it's Collins of no stranger to it now, given he's fought at Madison Square Garden, had those big shows in Belfast already. But how difficult is it to compartmentalise almost what's going on around you and just get focused on the actual fight? Because all the hoopla outside the ring, and yet you still have a man in there trying to take your head off it.
Yeah, and I think there's also an issue with Michael when he's in there and he's dominating guys, and at times he hasn't stopped them, or and he probably I can remember at times in big fights thinking, oh, I hope the crowd are enjoying this, or am I doing enough to entertain? But for Michael, it's important that he sticks to his job, sticks to his game plan, because Ruiz is a good boxer. Much about the bits I've seen of him, He's quite accomplished. 21-2. He's on a 10-fight win streak. He's 2 years younger than Michael, so he'll be coming here full, like, ready to do a job. He's definitely a game. Like, he's a live dog in the fight. It's not like. It's definitely like a good test for Michael at this stage in his career.
Michael it shows where his mindset is at. I was asking about Nikitin there, and was he disappointed that narrative fell off the card? And he was like, briefly, but as soon as, basically immediately he went, just get me the next best guy, and they went and got a better guy. And it's something me and you have spoken about, that Nikitin, while the narrative was good, like Conlan's streaked ahead of him in the pro game, and it was probably a bit of a mismatch. This is more competitive and a better tester for Michael.
Yeah, and it actually progressed him further in his career by winning this fight. So, like, although he might be not disappointed, I wouldn't say, it was probably never like that personal with him. He might have liked to got the fight back, but it would have been probably good for the average fan, not like the diehard fans, but for the diehard fans, this is actually a better fight. And Ruiz is quite accomplished. He fights southpaw, he fights orthodox, and so it's another test for Michael and something else that he'll have to deal with in there.
Yeah. And you mentioned fighting southpaw and fighting orthodox. It's something I mentioned to Michael there, and in his last fight he came out in southpaw, and I was just saying, is that something that's predetermined, or does he just have a look at his fighter and think, right, this southpaw probably suits this better? And it is more of a fluid thing, as you might expect. And like, how I remember he might have been doing his first Olympics when he won the bronze medal. I think it might have been you, but someone on the RT panel was trying to like relay to the common viewer how difficult it is to be able to box the same way as a southpaw and an orthodox. They were basically saying it's like playing golf left-handed and right-handed.
It's like anything. You're trying to brush it, like anyone who tries to brush their teeth with their weaker hand. It's
probably more difficult than kicking a ball with both feet, for example. It's like a whole different skill set on both sides, isn't it?
Because it involves the whole body. Yeah. You know, it involves the whole body. It's not just one motion, but yeah, Michael's pretty good at it, isn't he? You know, he's as good a switch hitter as I've seen in a while as anybody. Like, he can, he's very accomplished at both sides. Sometimes he's a lot more effective as a southpaw. Like, I've watched a lot of Michael's fights, and I've said it to him and Jamie. But when he boxes basic, you know, when he just does the basic things, which is in his wheelhouse, which is his bread and butter, he's a lot more effective. When he just does simple jabs, 1-2s down the pipe. Sometimes he can do, like, he tries it, or you see him on the pads doing 20-punch combinations, hooks, rolls, slip, step, you know, and it looks great. And when it comes off in a fight, it's spectacular. And he has pulled it off in times. But I would always encourage him to get back to his jab, back to his basic boxing, especially in the fight with Jason Cunningham, which you'd say is probably his stiffest test so far. When he was boxing basic, he was dominating. That would be, so I'm looking forward to seeing what he does now. If he stops Ruiz, which has never been done before, it must be said that Ruiz has never been stopped. It's a big statement, like, and he's kind of, how can I say, he'll be on his way to becoming not a superstar, but it's like, you can talk, like, I'm using my words cautiously, but superstar, yeah.
Bob Arum said he's top of the class and top rank, so that just shows.
And because of his draw, you know, because of he's selling out, like, you know, an outdoor arena, and this is his 12th fight. You know, his kind of presence, his social media presence, and within the game, people always refer to him, you know, and he's still only a prospect, so, like, I think he knows that he needs a spectacular performance. But he's never in a dull fight, really. Even the fights that he's kind of won on points, they're always entertaining. So,
and he's 18 months with Adam Booth. And I remember when you spoke to him before the last fight in Madison Square Garden, it was about when you join up with Booth, it's almost like going back to school, and he makes you feel like you're starting from the bottom up. But after 18 months, that's probably like a sweet spot where you're kind of getting into each other's groove. I
just messaged Adam last week, said, how's Michael? How's he looking? He just said, he's looking good. It's time to put all the good stuff he does in the gym regularly into action. And so that, like, I think they know that, like, within the camp, there's a feeling that there's an expectation of Michael now. So it's time for him to live up to it.
Yeah.
And go on now, and go on to the next step and show that he's world class.
Yeah.
He spoke about, you know, fighting the best featherweights in the division already, but sometimes, even though he has a skill, you have to do it in the ring and show that you're capable of that. So we'll see what he does.
And he's always been so forthright in his confidence, going back to when he was a teenager, winning those huge medals. And he basically making the point there that if he doesn't look overly at his opponent, like he'd leave that to Jamie and to Adam, but he just believes if he performs at his maximum that he's good enough to beat anyone in featherweight. So like, is there probably too much stock from people like me or other journalists to look at the tactics of the fight? Like, is Conlan going in there looking at himself more than anything, thinking I have to perform to my highest level?
Yeah, I think that, like, most fights, if you have tactics, there are only one or two small things. You're always going to box within your style of your range of punches and like movement. And Michael, he's as an amateur, he was a classic boxer, wasn't he? He moved, punched, had great balance. But now he's kind of coming like in that Adam Booth style, an aggressive counterpuncher, a reflex fighter. So I think he'll always step out and do that. That'll be his go-to from the start. Have a look at Ruiz early on, see what he has, and try to drain him mentally. That's what Adam does a lot with his fighters. Put on pressure with their feet. Adam's fighters put on pressure with their feet. Never give their opponent a rest mentally. And so that slowly, as the rounds go on, they become more tired. Not so much what to do and physically, what to do, what's going on internally, that they don't have a moment's rest or, just a breather. So I think Michael will do that, step out, and then see going down the stretch at around 6, 7, and 8 when Ruiz starts high, if he can get the stoppage, put the cherry on the cake.
Yeah. And a very appetising fight. It should be a great occasion. I don't know if you've seen the social media pictures of what the arena's going to look like, but if the weather's good, it should be quite an occasion. And also at the top of the bill, Luke Keeler, as you mentioned, the biggest fight of his career against tough Luis Arias. These were Luke's thoughts when I caught up with him earlier on.
Yeah, I'll say I had a great camp. Had some great sparring, and I have no complaints. I'm just ready to go in and perform,
Yeah, and another few months there of full-time training. It's about a year now since you probably went proper professional full-time. Are you feeling the benefit of that now?
Just getting into the groove now, to be honest. I'm settling in, and I think I'm improving each camp, and I'll need it in this fight. It's going to be a step up. He's a technically good fighter, but camp went great, and I'm ready to do it.
And when we had you in studio last time, it seemed that the Rosado fight might have been on the horizon, and there was a bit of interaction with him on Twitter. Did that fight ever come close to fruition, or was it all sort of just pre-fight talk?
Yeah, like it was close to being made. I seen he had it up on I think he put up on his Instagram page a trip to Ireland ahead, but I think he's a bit far off in terms of money. He is a name, and there seems to be money in the middleweight division, so he didn't take it in the end. He was probably asked for too much, but Arias is on the same level and a better record, and it puts me in the same position beating him as Rosado. So like it makes no difference. To be honest, I think Arias' style will suit me better. I think he's going to come forward more.
Yeah,
and I know Rosado's known as a tricky kind of like he's known as a warrior more so, but I think Arias will be more come forward. Yeah,
and he's the task at hand, and Rosado's obviously a big name, but on paper I'd say Arias is probably better, and a lot of people picked him when they drew that Arias probably won that fight. So are you expecting him to bring anything unusual to the table, or is it going to be what you've seen of him in the past, what you've watched of him on tape?
Yeah, I think it'd be similar. He's a very technical fighter. I think he was a top amateur, and he has that pedigree. But I think I'll beat him, and he's not particularly huge middleweight, and I'm feeling better than I ever did. And I know myself, he doesn't have an incredible walk rate. He's just technically very good, catches shots well, and comes back. He likes to come forward and beat a bully. But I think I have size and strength, and I'll get the win.
And I saw you saying that you've been working more on sustaining attacks, and maybe that that killer's instinct almost. Have you changed things up much in camp compared to the Cummings camp?
Yeah, just as I said, that's what I wanted to work on. Just bigger walk rate, and I think it was nearly a mental thing when I was walking and training part time, that I was kind of holding back nearly in fights, worrying about my engine, and my engine was always there. I felt fresh in the 9th and 10th round, but this time around I've just I've stepped up my work rate, punch output, and I'll show in this fight now next week.
And Arias is a brash enough guy. We saw him against Danny Jacobs and he was giving it the big one. Have you had much interaction with him before fight week, or has it all been just the usual promotion?
Yeah, no, there was no noise from him. He seems to be quiet. I'm sure he'll have something to say in the press conference on Thursday. It'll be a good experience. But I don't feed into it. I don't know whether he's going to try to get a mental edge on him, but I don't think it'll work on myself. But it'll be a good experience, and it is kind of a fight that it is war level, and once I get through this, my job is nearly done as a fighter, and I think my team are going to be looking at big fights from me, you know. Yeah.
And just fighting in Belfast, you're no stranger to fighting up there. You're on the Windsor Park show and a couple of big shows at the Ulster Hall, but just looking at what this Féile show is going to look like, and Michael Conlan headlining, and just a huge show and your chief support, you must feel a level of excitement for this one as well.
Yeah, look, the venue looks amazing. I've just seen they had drone footage of it. I think the crowd is going to be class. Like that lift me, I'll be floating to the ring. I don't think this Arias guy will ever experience that. Like that Irish crowd will be coming into good Irish music, and I'd say it'd be a shock to the system. I'm going to start well and just notch up those rounds against them, you know.
Yeah. And you mentioned the Irish crowd. You've boxed in Belfast, but a couple of times against Cummings, who would have been the home fighter, as it were. This time you're going to be the home fighter. That must be a good boost as well.
Yeah, and I always got great support, even after the Cummings fights, from his fans and even like sponsors of him, and people came up and probably the way I behaved during the fights and afterwards. But I got great support from the Belfast public, so I'm expecting an even bigger support now. The fact that he's the way fighter, you know, it is like a second home now, so I'm expecting a good support, and it does help when you're in there, you know.
Yeah, and you're sixth in the WBO now, as you mentioned, and you know there's a bit of flux in the middleweight division. People aren't quite sure where they're going in terms of the champions, so it's not overstating it to say a win here puts you bang in contention for a world title fight soon. Without overlooking Arias, is that something that's on your mind?
Yeah, look, I have to get the job done on Saturday, but I know myself, and from talking with my team, like some of the fights are there, like that they're struggling for opponents, and I just solidify that position. He's ranked in the WBC as well. I'll probably go up in the rankings at WBO. Like so, after this fight is any of the big names. Like Jacobs could be looking for a fight. Like any of the names are there. I know Andrade's struggling for opponents. So it's all open, the division. Canelo doesn't seem keen on Golovkin, so you never know what will happen after Saturday, you know.
And before I let you go, it's been a strange enough week for boxing. I was talking to Jason Quigley last night and Andy Lee, just a couple of tragedies in the ring, and then the doping stuff's coming back to the fore. You've always been quite a thoughtful person on the grand scheme of things, life and boxing, and your twin boys and all this kind of stuff. Has this week had much of an impact on you, or have you thought about it much?
Yeah, look, to be honest, I haven't given myself time to think about it. You know, you don't want to be thinking too much deeply into occurrences like that during when you have a big fight coming up. But I'm sure, like, I'll allow myself after a fight to think about it. But it is a risk, you know, and it's a reason why. It's a big reason why I like to just step up in levels and get out at the top. Like, I'm not going to hang around in this sport. I think that's when the damage is done. Like, I think of a year, 2 years left in me. Even though I feel fresh and I'm enjoying things, but it's not a sport that you hang around in. I think you can only draw from the well so many times, and it does have an accumulative effect. So I'll be in and out, but I haven't thought too much into it with fight week. You know, it's not worth thinking about, but it is something that would play in your mind, you know.
And we've spoken there about you stepping on the gas. Are you going to be going for the KO next week, Luke, or what kind of fight can the fans expect in Belfast? Yeah,
I'm going to be busier and just step it up. Like, I'm not going to look for a knockout. He's a technical good fighter. Like, I'm not going to make mistakes. I'll be happy with a points win if the punches come and I land well and good. But I'm happy to get a points win because I know after this is mega fights. You know, I seen actually Jason Quigley's interview, which is ourselves, and it's kind of his position and mine is a bit different. Like he went from the high performance straight over to like he nearly has more pressure on him, you know, in terms of his boxing. I can understand the pressure on him, but I feel as if I feel going into this fight there's no pressure on me. I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I'm just gonna notch up the win and push on, you know. But it was really honest from Jason. He took on board what went wrong. He didn't make any excuses, and I'm sure it is what Andy said was a similar scenario with Bird. I'm sure he'll learn from it and come back strong, you know.
Yeah, and similarly yourself, like having suffered defeat midway through your career and have since bounced back to this high level, like did that defeat stand to you, just the learnings you took from that and you've managed to build to this stage in your career?
Yeah, like I absorb and learn from. I think if you carry a bit of an ego, some guys, I see the way they speak, they put it down, or it was caught with a punch, and I may even have been guilty of that at the time of the Darden fight, dismissing the fact that I made so many mistakes. You know, you can be. I could have at the time just said, look, I had him gone and I rushed in, and nearly dismissing the fact that I was reckless and the defence was bad. But I've noticed that with a couple of fighters coming out after the defeat saying, that's boxing, you know, not actually grasping the fact that they're making the same mistakes over and over. So it was good to see. It showed intelligence from Quigley that he knows he's 4 or 5 things to work on, and I'm sure he'll come back for those reasons, you know.
Yeah, and in terms of yourself, it should be a brilliant occasion and a brilliant fight next week, Luke. Best of luck, and hopefully we can catch up with you after the fight.
Yeah, please God, yes.
There you go, Luke Keeler, who's getting set for, as I said, the biggest test of his career. And when we had him in here, Rosado was the talk, that was the name that he was bandying around, and that was probably the fight that MTK and everybody wanted. But he's got Arias, who's probably lesser light slightly, but a tougher fighter, I would say. And the task remains the same because they're both quite similar tasks at hand. And if Keeler was in and boxes to his best, he should get the win here.
I don't even know if it's 50-50 fight. On paper, you have to favour Arias. He's been in with the better company, you know. And there's always like a toughness and an extra bit of quality to American fighters because of the depth in the gym that they have, the competition and that they go through. So, like, I think if Luke wins, it's a big result for him. I don't think, he's well capable of winning. I'd love to see him win, but I think he's an underdog in this fight. You know, I don't see it as...
It's interesting.
Yeah, I think he's an underdog in the fight. Luke's proven, that he's a class operator. You know, there's 2 wins over Conrad Cummins, but that's Conrad Cummins. You know, this guy's a different animal. Yeah. You know, he's come through the New York system, so he would have been the New York Golden Gloves. He's a US amateur. So he knows what he's doing. Like, he's been in there with Jacobs and wasn't embarrassed. He lost the fight clearly, but he wasn't embarrassed. He was competing. So we've said, like, the old cliches, there are levels, and this is a different level. Yeah. And it would be one of the best results, I think, in a while for an Irish fighter if Luke can pull it off. But he's well capable of it. Like, I'm sure that I'm not sure like what he's done differently in his preparation, but he'll have to do everything better, you know, and repeat it. But he's shown he can do that against Conrad Cummins, fight to a game plan and sustain it. So we'll see how he goes.
But I would have thought, like, the chasm between Keeler and Cummings, like, he outclassed him comfortably in both of those fights. And what impressed me most about him recently is that he's able to mix it kind of anyway. Like, he can box at distance, very accomplished in that, and then if you want to get inside with him, he can do that too. Whereas Arias, I think, is a little bit more one-dimensional. If Luke can keep it at distance, I think he should be able to outbox him. But that's going off the Rosado fight and the Danny Jacobs fight, who's obviously in a different conversation to the guys we're talking about here. But I don't know, it's a 50-50, but I think if Luke boxes to his best, he should get the win, especially at home. And it's probably novelty for him to go to Belfast and be the home fighter. People will be cheering for him and not the other guy. So it's a great card. Like, it's 10 Irish fighters on the card. It's going to be a great night.
Looking forward to seeing Dennis McCann too, the young fighter from England. good young prospect. I've seen his last 2 fights. So he's good.
Yeah,
good kid.
BT are going full board, and it's on ESPN as well, so it's a great showcase for all the lads. On Friday night on Sky, Next Gen card headlined by Anthony Fowler, who's back after first loss of his career, and that was an upset in itself, against Brian Rose, who had retired and now is back. And it's just a veteran sort of test for Fowler, probably a good name to get in his record, and he needs to bounce back.
Yeah. You can only see the fight going one way, can't you? That's for Fowler. I think he'll be hungrier, he'll be wiser from the defeat. And although Rose is a veteran, you don't see him being that kind of hardened veteran that can, drain a young fighter out and take him into the deep water.
Yeah.
He's never really shown that in his previous fights. So, yeah, it's a good comeback fight for him, I think, for Fowler. And can he get Fitzgerald back in the ring? Because it would be good. It would be good. It would be a nice little fight again, It's
funny when you mentioned Vera was reluctant to get back in with you. I'd say Fitzgerald, the last thing he's going to do is give Fowler that shot back straight away. He's probably going to try and build himself, and he's Ted Cheeseman. I think that's the fight they're going to make for the title. So that'll be, in itself, a good clash of styles and an interesting fight. The headline or the main attraction of that bill, Andy, I think you'll agree, Lewis Ritson is back. He's fighting Joe Hughes, but Joe Hughes actually is off the card as of this morning.
Yes, I don't know.
So it's going to be TBA or TBC, whoever that fighter is. But
you'll be tuning in anyway.
Exactly. So highlight reel of British boxing. And then in the heavyweights, Adam Karnaki's back as well. So again, another name in this heavyweight division that probably doesn't look the part, much like Andy Ruiz, but he can really fight. And he's a wild card in the division.
Yeah, he's a wild card in the division. What did you think of the big fight in the weekend in America?
Booker Ramirez, we mentioned Tevin Farmer, so he was co-feature, and the most refreshing thing about that fight was a cross-platform, the zone guy against the top-ranked guy, unification, 2 undefeated fighters, put it all on the line, and it was a really good fight. We talked about psychology there a couple of times, and Hooker getting dropped in the first round for something that wasn't a knockdown, how can that not affect you? You're chasing the fight from the start, you've been wronged here, and he probably was fighting outside his game plan a little bit. Yeah,
it was hard. It kind of got, I think he was a bit of a rabbit in the headlights or something, wasn't it? He just didn't settle into it, and then before he knew it, he was dropped, and he was rocked before that, and he looked a bit unsteady legs from the start, and looked like, we mentioned the glaze behind the eyes, but even before the fight, it was kind of just didn't take it in. That can happen when you fight at home, and when you we know, you're walking out, there's all these familiar faces, and you're like, oh yeah, and then before you know, I'm in a fight here, you know what I mean? The bell's ringing. So I don't know, but it was a good fight. He fought hard. He went down fighting. He fought hard, but it was a good stoppage, and Ramirez showed his class, and I really liked the performance. And what I think was one of the biggest assets that he had was his footwork. If you watch the first round, he comes out and he's bouncing on his feet. He's got really lively feet, and what that does is set your rhythm. But if you got fast, lively feet, then you're going to have fast, lively hands. Where Hooker was more plotted, more low, and his punches were coming out. It's more stationary as well, more stiffer, and that that was the base, the foundation for all his attacks was that bounce in his feet, and he continued that for the fight. And he's kind of filling the there's been a void of a really tough, come forward, aggressive Mexican fighter, hasn't he? For a while, Antonio Margarita might have been the last one. I'm sure there's been a few, but there hasn't been a really dominant world champion, aggressive Mexican fighter. We've had all the boxers of obviously Canelo now, Marquez. There's probably another one or two.
Brandon Rios at a lower level, maybe, but I know what you mean.
But even with Rios, it was more. He would come for that kind of Chavez-esque style, senior. So I'm looking forward to see. It was a really, really good performance by him, and I like to see a good fight end in 6 rounds. It's just the perfect time. There's enough action there. You get to see both guys, and let's get out of here early. Let's get the fight over.
Yeah, no, it was class, and you probably speak better than anyone about this. Just that middle distance they were fighting at the whole time. You're just in range, but you're not inside, so you can't rest.
It suited Ramirez, Hook couldn't really. He was too reactionary, wasn't he? He was just too passive in a lot of the exchanges or the initiating who punches first. He kind of was put on the back foot from the start, and never really found himself in the fight. Although he did fight well in spots, it was always like in response to what Ramirez had done previous to that. So he'd probably kick himself a little bit that if he watched the fight that he didn't step out from the start and take it to Ramirez and try and put it on him. But that's the way the fights go, isn't it? Sometimes that I do believe the occasion, probably the hometown, fighting in his hometown, having all those fans and support there, did affect him.
And Ramirez, like, saw the gap, like he saw the opening and finished the fight straight away. Like, he just jumped right in. The door was slightly open. He just kicked the door down. Yeah,
and there was that moment that you see it often in fights where Hooker took the punch, he's hurt, and he's almost embarrassed that he's kind of like had a little smile as he's getting like as he's taking shots, like, you know. But it was nice. It was a good fight. It lived up to expectation, if not exceeded the expectation. And also both men conducted themselves before and after the fight the way boxers should do. So it was a good fight and a reminder of what's great about boxing.
And a great refereeing as well, we should say, for the week that was in it. He didn't. No one drew punishment. He was straight in, and even Hooker after the fight was like sitting there with his kids, and he was like, "I'm happy. The referee did me good there." And the 140 division, like Terence Crawford unified it recently. It's always been loaded, and Taylor Prograis later this year, they're going to unify, and then conceivably in 6 months' time we're going to have another unification at that division. So it's loaded with talent.
Then there's probably a will for them to get together because they want the big fights. They want, like, you know, the thing is with all this money in boxing now, from ESPN, through DAZN and wherever it may be, there's a willingness for the fighters to fight each other because that's where the money is. You know, before you could fight like on your network and fight lesser guys, and because you were kind of signed into that network, you would kind of make a living. But now the big money is in the stream. They want the big fights, like you can see ESPN and DAZN coming together to promote that fight. So I think it looks good for boxing. You know, that's a good.
It's almost like the transfer market where Bob Arum gave Eddie Hearn Ramirez for this fight, but in return Lomachenko is getting to fight on Sky, and there's just a few different things like that. So we should mention Gervonta Davis before we go. Tevin Farmer in the same division, and they've been sort of dancing around each other a little bit. I'm sure Davis has big plans, but he did go back to Baltimore for this fight, drew a nice crowd, and it is important for these fighters. You see it with Crawford back in Omaha, that even though they want to fight in Vegas and Madison Square Garden, to tap into that home market, and that's where the money is as well. Yeah,
and it's just for yourself, and so many more benefits to find at home, because whenever you retire, people will remember those fights, you know, and you can walk down the street and you meet people and they'll remind you of it, or you might go into his shop and get a free suit or something. So we'll see. No, but it's good. It's always good to have a good home base. That's probably the unfortunate thing about Irish boxing at the moment. You can't build a fight here. There's no fights, insurance reasons, whatever. But hopefully that can change sometime in the future.
Yeah. Well, that's about our lot for this week, Andy. Any other business? No, looking forward to getting up to Belfast now on Saturday. We'll have a good road trip. What's the playlist? Have you got a Spotify playlist? I've been listening to a lot of Trish Dixon's like Boxing Life Stories. Yeah. Have you listened to some of those? Get on to that if you want. We'll listen to it on the way up. We won't be listening to ourselves anyway. So looking forward to Belfast, and we'll be recapping that show. And Carl Frampton's back in action, so we'll be previewing that one as well. Until then, though, it's goodbye from us.